This is going to be a small little guide on leveling as a Warpath Void Knight, starting from the very beginning as Warpath rather than doing the more common or popular, at least according to build creators and websites discussing leveling. You know, they mention using Javelin and other ways of leveling, maybe using Ignite Warpath, things like that. But for me, I prefer to just stick with one build as much as I can, just to make it easy to transition from start of a new league to an end game. I like to just stick with the same thing, not have to worry too much about respecing and spending gold on that and figuring out, oh, I have to not use this item anymore. It adds more burden of knowledge having to play multiple builds in one league. It feels like right now this is my test character that I just created maybe a few days ago. Got him to level 54. Did up to Act 5, and then I went to Monolith. So basically doing kind of that speed run strat, not actually finishing the campaign. You get to Act 5, and then you go straight to Monolith. You get the temporal key eventually while you level up in Monolith. So I was in Monolith, I'd say around level 36. So to start off, I'm going to go to the website, which is Last Epoch Planner, Last Epoch Tools, their planner there. Really good. I'll try to link this in the description of the video as well, so that you guys can take a look at the planner. The nice thing about Warpath, and this is something very important, is that you want to get this modifier, health on melee hit. Just tier 1 is enough. You can still stick with tier 1 throughout the campaign. Even, like, if you look at my current character here, the only health on hit I have right now is this. This right here, this, the Mournful Pennant, the relic that drops really early, and it just gives you 5 HP on melee hit. So, doesn't matter what stats it has. Obviously, if you get some reses on it, that's great. But getting melee hit, life on melee hit, is just massive for Warpath because you're hitting constantly. It'll basically keep you topped up permanently. So, you're looking for that immediately. Get that right away. You can craft it, obviously. That's why it's important when you get items in this game that have useful affixes. That's why also a loot filter is so important. Because you want to pick up those useful affixes because you want to shatter them with your Runes of Shattering, which you'll get a fair bit. You can also buy them from the vendor. A little expensive, but why it can be a good idea to sell stuff. Which is also why there's people who speed run and they get this stuff done under 2 hours or whatever, but they don't sell anything. They don't really pick up much stuff. Their gear is probably going to really suck, and they're really good at the game. For someone like me, and probably a lot of other people, just don't have too strict of a loot filter. Pick stuff up. It's okay if you do some inventory management in town and you're just looking at the vendor and selling stuff. Maybe even buying something from a vendor because they can sell some pretty good stuff too, right? Don't too worry too much about spending time because it's just better for your own mental state, in my opinion. If you have decent gear, you don't feel like you're struggling against mobs too much because you took the time to pick up stuff that's useful to you and vendor things and make the money that you need to make. But yeah, health on hit, super important. Get that ASAP. Very common as well to get Ignite. Everyone says get Ignite on hit or bleed on hit, and that's true here too. Especially with Warpath, it applies dots pretty well. So getting some Ignite chance on your very first weapon is a good idea. And then in terms of what you're scaling for actual damage, it doesn't really matter early on, right? Because we're not a Void Knight until you're level 20. So, your first axes, first swords, whatever, it doesn't have to be a specific weapon type. Two-handed, I'd recommend. Just go two-handed, more damage. But getting melee attack speed, getting melee flat damage, cold damage, it really doesn't matter. Just get some kind of flat damage on your for prefixes, right? Don't want crit, because you're not critting, like, ever until later on, so don't worry about crit, That's kind of what you're looking for there, for weapons. Just to go over, so you get Warpath super early. I think it's like level 3, I can't remember exactly, but you get it really quickly. Now it sucks without investment, at least a little bit of investment, right? So at minimum, you're going to want to get Reckless Spin, because Reckless Spin makes it free, right? Minus 10 mana. The elemental resistance reduction doesn't really matter for campaign. Like, nothing's killing you in campaign, especially with life on hit. It doesn't matter. So you're not going to feel this. And being able to just spin permanently, it's great. It doesn't do that much damage. Maybe if you get lucky with your weapon, you can do pretty good damage, but you're not going to be killing stuff super fast, but you'll kill stuff fast enough. It's fine. And then you're going to want to get Void Spiral. Do some damage. good, but really what you're looking for is Echo Knight. You'll get this probably before level 20, so it's not actually going to do anything until you're actually a Void Knight, because you can't Echo unless you're a Void Knight. But still, you're going to want this anyways. You're going to get that. You're going to get Apocalypse Whirl, and then you're going to get Mob the Deep. So that's kind of the standard way to build a Void Knight early on, and you're going to do the same thing here. Get these nodes. You can maybe hold off on getting some of these ones, but I mean, you don't really want to. Maybe hold off on this one if you have like a really good physical weapon, because it swaps your damage to void. And if your weapon is physical and it has a bunch of increased fizz, this will basically make the increased fizz do nothing. You might not want to spec this if you have a really good like increased physical weapon or a lot of increased physical damage until you're a Void Knight. Then you may as well switch, right? Get a better Void weapon. So that's kind of how you can spec into Warpath right away, and you'll be fine. You know, maybe, yeah, like I said, a couple extra minutes to kill a boss, but whatever. One thing to do as well when you're super early levels, actually like Hammer Throw. You don't even have to spec Hammer Throw. You can spec Warpath just to get it, you know, collecting skill points and be as much up to date as possible, so you have as much skill points in it. I'd probably do that personally. You get it level 2, right? And then, yeah, Hammer Throw, you don't even have to spec into it. You could maybe spec into it second. Actually, probably Rive would be better to spec into second, because Rive is pretty OP. If you do want something that just kills bosses faster, then you can get Rive, because it gives you like the chance to gain forge weapons, right here. Yeah. And the forge weapons are really OP. So, you know, that's pretty worth it. Potentially, if you want to kill bosses faster, you don't have to. Another thing you could spec into, this is what I did, was doing lunge seconds. And lunge doesn't do any damage. It's just a movement skill. So, you know, it's really just for utility. It can do some useful stuff, though, specifically with Call the Weak. Right? You can get a kill threshold of 15%. But it's a little janky because you have to be a fair bit of distance away from the boss to do anything with it. And it calculates whether or not you one-shot the boss, or if he's under 50%, whether or not it calls him, depending on if you're far enough away when you use it. And with when you're warpathing, you're probably not gonna be you're gonna be on top of the boss, right? So you have to like do this jank. I don't know. I mean, it's up to you. If you feel like you want to make use of that, you can. Otherwise, you can do things like you can get invulnerability, which I think they reduce the amount of points it takes to get there, so that's nice. And that just makes you easy. It makes it easier to like dodge boss mechanics. But I'll be honest, I mean, when you're in campaign, especially with life gun on hit, you're like never dying. Like, this is not going to save your life, probably. Maybe if you're playing hardcore, sure. But I don't play hardcore. If you play it, I don't know, you're probably better than me anyways. So, yeah. So you could do that, but definitely you don't get very much value out of specking in lunge, and it's just kind of like a stopgap. So a skill to spec into if you don't have anything else to spec into, to maybe get some use out of it. But definitely, you know, I would just start with Warpath and use Warpath right away, especially with these points in it, and you'll be killing stuff pretty well. You know, again, Rive, you can spec into it second instead of lunge. Let's look at our passives here. Obviously, we start as Sentinel. You're gonna want you're gonna want the resistances, right? Because we're already reducing our resistances with the Reckless node, so you want to max this out ASAP. After that, this is a really good node. You want to max this out because 10% less damage taken is pretty OP. You just get that maxed out. And then you have 7 points left in order to hit 20. So you can do a few different things. What I think is best, put as many points as you want into here. Maybe add 1 point to here because this is just a 1-point wonder. You get plus 3% block chance. Kind of nice. And doesn't hurt to get. And then Void Knight time, right? Because now you're level 20, you're going to get some Void Knight points. You want at least 5 points in the Void Knight, in my opinion, to start for Volatile Reversal. Now, it is reasonable instead to rush Symbols of Hope instead of bothering Volatile Reversal, because Volatile Reversal, it's really good right now in patch 1.1, but in 1.2, it's honestly not as good. It's still not bad. It's hard to say exactly what's best here. You could do this, right? You could do, you only want 1 point in this, so if you want to get 1 point in this now, you could maybe just put 5 points into this. So but minus 5% damage taken, pretty nice. Get some physical resistances, very nice. You know, everything does physical damage basically. You know, the void damage, you could put that in if you're really struggling with DPS, but it's only 2 damage per point. It's kind of crap. And these nodes in general, I think, are pretty low value overall. It's not bad early game, maybe, if you're really just wanting to pump damage, but I think this is more valuable. So I would just put 5 points to that. And then let's look at Volatile Reversal. Because it's got some use cases. Right, so what I would do, and this is probably what I'll do personally, is spec Volatile Reversal, may as well. Get 5 points in that. So you put 2 points into this, get the usable duration up. Also, you just need it to get up here. The haste buff is only when you jump backwards in time, so it's kind of useless because I don't think we'll ever want to because of this. You gain the frenzy buff while you're able to jump backwards in time. Frenzy buff gives you some pretty good stats. I think it's like 20% attack speed or something. I don't know the exact stats it gives, but it gives you basically what Volatile Reversal used to give you if you spec'd into the attack speed points and all that. And that will just last as long as you don't jump back, which is why you want, you know, this already kind of is a synergy there, makes it take longer before you have to jump back or it expires. Yeah, you just, and it's a movement skill almost too. So it basically takes place of lunge where it lets you move forward to a position. So that's kind of nice. So you use your Volatile Reversal, you get your frenzy buff, and then you just start whirlwinding, right? And then everything else that you can do, I think you do shorter cooldown, right? So that it's up more often. You always have the frenzy buff as much as possible. You don't want this because then it's no traversal. I think traversal is kind of nice with that. Honestly, everything else is kind of useless. I think what was kind of useful, this reclaimed action part was kind of good. So you could get that. So maybe you can go incipient void bolt to do some extra damage. I don't know if that stuff is good or not, but why not? The slow chance doesn't really matter. And then reclaimed action is kind of nice because if you jump at least 4 meters, then your next ability will echo, guaranteed. That means your whirlwind, your warpath will guarantee to be echoing. And the warpath echoing is a big chunk of damage, especially on bosses. So this is kind of a nice boost to damage as well. Yeah, so that's kind of what I would do with Volatile Reversal. It's a stopgap. It's somewhat useful, but it's not something you'll stay using in the end game. I think it's worth while you're waiting for the other better stuff. I have to spec into it a bit. And then beyond that, that's when we're going to want to focus. We get 5 points in here. That's when we start focusing on Paladin. Paladin, really nice node here, Defiance. Gives you a ton of elemental resistances, right? Just all LE reses, 24%. Super nice, especially, again, since we have minus 30% res. You max that out right away. And then I'd put the rest into this because it gives you HP, endurance, a lot of good stuff there. And then you go up to 15 points for Symbol of Hope. Symbol of Hope is amazing now. Before, you had to manually cast it. You have to do some janky tech with Volatile Reversal where you would cast this 3 times and use Volatile Reversal 4 times if you had that other node. And then cast Volatile Reversal to get your mana back. Because, yeah, that was super annoying. But now, it just, every 2 seconds, summons a symbol for free. Which is really nice. And let's look at Volatile, Symbols of Hope and what you would get here. So obviously, this is just damage. You want to get damage. You actually want to start with 3 points here because this is very strong, getting these points, because this gives you 3 damage per symbol. Right now, it's fire damage. But once you spec into this, that becomes void damage, and it increases your void damage percentage per symbol. So it's just tons of freaking damage. Absolutely insane amounts of damage. So when this, and this is not, I don't think this has been nerfed at all. I have to double check, like, compare the two, but I'm pretty sure this is the same as it used to be. You're just getting a crap ton of damage for free, straight up just for free, which is great, right? And then you get another point in here because why not? And then you can get some crit. I think it's probably just best to get 5 out of 5 on this. You know, I mean, you could maybe just stick with 3 and go get the extra symbol instead. That might be more value. I think maybe that is more value. I don't know. It's hard to say and do the math. But, you know, no matter what, you definitely want Tetragram, right? Just +1 symbol. Then you want to max this out. And then crit chance isn't that good until you get more crit chance as a whole. Maybe some better weapons like a sword. You know, you get points into this. So, you know, the value of this isn't super high, but I mean, what else are you gonna really do, right? It's like you don't have much of other. Nothing else is very useful. So you might as well just from there get it maxed out. But we've already used a ton of points here, right? This is assuming you put 14 points into it. That's you're pretty much doing monoliths at that point, anyways. Yeah, it's pretty much the tree that you go for, right? You go up here, then you go here. And then just getting a free ton of damage. And this is going to be really nice compared to what it is like now, where honestly it's just a pain in the butt to keep Symbols of Hope up right now because you have to cast it. So future with the newest patch here on Thursday, this is just always up. You don't have to think about it. It's just that's amazing. That's just going to be a huge boost to your damage. Beyond that, so the two final skills that we should be specking into, it's a bit tough. Anomaly's really good, but you don't get it until much later. And Abyssal Echoes and Devouring Orb, you will use these. You will use these, but they all cost mana to use, and we don't have much mana early game, right? We don't have a ton of mana regen. We don't have any ways of recouping mana really as a whole. Like we don't have the Void Well passive that gives us a ton of mana. We don't have a ton of mana to begin with, and when you're 0 mana and you can't Warpath, that just feels bad, right? It's horrible. You have to just run around and watch as you get owned by a boss or something. It's just not a good time. Us spinning is keeping us alive with life gain on hit, right? And all our leech. So yeah, we don't want to be in a situation where we're just running around doing nothing. So that's why, the final two things. I mean, you could do things like you could spec into a racing strike maybe, and then just juice this out, get some more damage, and just kind of use this every 5 seconds or however long it's a cooldown of 5 seconds. And yeah, it costs 30 mana. But I don't know. I guess you could do that. There's really that would be interesting to see what you guys think on maybe in the comments. Like, what are the two final skills we should spec into for the campaign? Slash, I mean, when you're doing if you do the speedrun strat of you hit Act 5 and you go right into Monolith, which you don't have to do. A lot of people go to Act 7 instead and get all their idols and passives. So that's optional, of course, but or they just do the whole campaign. Do that too. But a lot of the times, you won't even have this fifth one. You'll have 4, but the fifth one you won't have. So the fourth one, what would really help you? Again, Anomaly is honestly your best thing, but Anomaly is pretty deep. Look at Anomaly here. So this is 5 points in Anomaly. You have to have 30 points, right? So another 30 points. You're going to be pretty high level, or you can actually spec into Anomaly. So you could also just keep it empty, because again, there's not much that's good. Void Cleave, I guess, could be used. You don't want to use Healing Hands. That I guess you could. You can make Healing Hands free and make it auto cast when you Warpath for some extra healing. I don't know. Maybe that's worth doing, right? Because you can go like down to here, lower mana cost, and you can lower the mana cost more, and then you would get this, so that you have 100% chance, and it actually increases your mana consumption a little bit. So I think it will cost a little, 1 mana or something. I don't know. I haven't actually tried it, but maybe that's worth doing. I don't think it is, but maybe because we already have so much life that we're gaining whenever we're warpathing. So yeah, I don't know what you guys think. Doing maybe Abyssal Echoes is actually worth checking into and just using occasionally on a boss, for example, putting it down. I don't know. Let's see. So passives, we only got the 5 points. So let's look at our next point. So one is the Devouring Blade, just so that we can get the World Eater. You want 5 points into this for the increased leech rate, right? 20% increased leech rate's nice, plus the 2% damage being leeched. That's melee damage plus void damage, so it's really 4%. Because we're doing both types of damage. This is just, it's just nice generic leech. You don't even have to have the 5 health on hit anymore when you have these points, right? Still nice to have those, I think, but you can get 5 points into that. I don't think it's necessarily worth putting 5 points into this right away, because I don't think we're going to be doing much critting to start. But maybe if you get a really nice sword that has a lot of crit early on, you could do that. But, I mean, it's pretty hard to find that. So you have a choice, right? I think the obvious choice is just put 5 points into this. This is just 40% more damage, 25% area with melee skills, kind of nice. Some flat armor. Area doesn't actually matter that much with Warpath, because you're not really going to notice 25% increased area. I mean, it does matter eventually, but 25% pretty small. But I think that's still pretty good node. You're gonna want that anyways eventually. This node sucks. This node's okay. Maybe you could put points into here and then respec afterwards, right? Put some 5 points into this, maybe just 2, and put a bunch into here, I guess. That's okay. Get some more damage, because their damage is pretty bad early on. But after that, you're gonna want this for sure. 5 points into this, get some strength, get some HP. It's pretty nice. Beyond that, finality I like, because it's just straight up 10% culling plus 40% increased damage. Good damage, good usefulness. I think this is really nice. Right, get 5 points into this for the void penetration plus the frailty chance and the slow chance. You get guaranteed of those 2 things, which is nice. And then echo chance is giga important. You know, you want to max your echo chances because that's like plenty of your damage. You'll need 1 point to essence so you can unlock void well. You don't want any void aegis, it's useless. Singular void is really good. I think you want 4 points into that ASAP. You might even want 4 points before you get this, because this is just damage, less damage taken from slowed enemies and from time running enemies. So that's an extra 5% on each. So that's 10% total. Plus you get more void damage. I mean, it's just good, right? I think 5 points you don't want. Just get 4 points. It's the 4-point bonus. And Eternal Form is really strong, right? You just get Vitality, you just get a ton of HP. Really, really good. This is also really good. You get movement speed. This is where you kind of have a lot of choices. You want Void Well, because this enables your mana generation. This enables you to start using the Abyssal Echoes on Whirlwind and the Devouring Orb self-casting. By the way, we can do Anomaly now. We'll look at Anomaly. Yeah, at this point, don't see preference. You know, you can, if you want more health, get Eternal Form. If you want more damage, get Time Legion. If you want more speed, just movement speed, get Dread Form. And then these are also, like, you don't want to get Avatar of Regret. You can ignore this. This is also really good, and this is also really good. In fact, I would max this next once you get to this point. Yeah, a lot of this stuff really is user preference, right? You know, but this stuff you do want to max, right? Like these, you do want to get as much echo as possible. So I think it's worth maxing out this. Plus, it's just attack speed. And then yeah, but regardless, a lot of this is preference on like the ordering of it, and you can't really go wrong. A lot of this stuff is buffed, by the way. A lot of these nodes are just way stronger than they were before. So that'll be a nice boost in power compared to last patch 2, I'd say. Then let's look at the Anomaly. So Anomaly is definitely something you want to spec into ASAP. You do want it to cast instantly, but I don't think we should rush that. Some people might disagree because it's nice to be able to cast this while whirlwinding or warpathing or whatever, but it also just takes half a second. I mean, it's like an instant cast, right? It takes no time at all just to cast it, and then it follows you because of Time Bubble plus what is it, Time Lord, right? So it's just so you use it, yeah, it just follows you around. So you cast it, and then you're getting the buffs for a very long time, and it takes no time to cast. I just don't think going up here is worth it right away. You do want to get this, you know, but you're losing so much power by not getting these nodes, right? Like this is 20% attack speed, and then this is crap ton of crit, which another big thing as well. You want to get this, by the way. This is something that you want to pretty much get instantly. It's really important. You want to get this ASAP as well for the void damage taken. You eventually want this, but I mean, it takes so many points. I just don't think it's you need to get right away. Anomaly is great. You want to get that. Final skill, again, I was kind of mentioning not too much that's worth doing until you get your mana fixed for Warpath. But you could do maybe Abyssal Echoes and just pop it down. I think there's some damage boosts in here. You can get like Armor Shred. And yeah, I don't know. Doesn't do too much for you in terms of like being worth kind of stopping and using it, right? Costs a fair bit of mana too. So I don't know. I think it's not that useful until you're auto casting it with Warpath, and you don't have to worry about mana because of Void Well is what it's called, right? Now, by the way, so with Warpath, I didn't really go over it, but once you got these nodes up here, you got these nodes down here, you want to come up and max this out, get this maxed because that's a ton of damage. And then this is only good if you're using a two-handed sword. Otherwise, I mean, yeah, Global Leech is useless pretty much. I mean, it's not useless, but it's pretty whatever. The crit chance is really good. But again, you have to be using a sword. So if you have a really good sword, go for it. If you have a really good sword, it's not worth it. I don't think Dark Nexus is actually that worth it, but maybe it's nice for the mana. If you want to start doing mana stuff earlier, you can get this. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know if that's worth it. Can't tell. This is also really good. Quicksilver wins. Move faster. You also max this out for more damage if you're really struggling. Again, you don't want to go Abyssal Tempest until you get Voidwell. And you can pop that in and you can start speccing into it. Eventually, you also want to spec out a Volatile Reversal and get the Devouring Orb so you can self-cast this, or automatically cast this when you move. But we're getting into the weeds of the endgame, and that's where I haven't looked into it too much even personally. I'm just kind of going to follow a guide from Actual, the Warpath, and I'll put that in the link in the description, but I think it looks like a really good guide. These guys tested this stuff in closed beta. They know what they're doing. They say it's an amazing build, and I believe them. I think they're trustworthy, so I'm just going to follow that for the most part. Maybe make some small changes with the passives that I think are better, and or just things that I prefer to do, right? And just feel it out as I play, and maybe I'll do some updates the channel on how I build my thing out in the end. But I'm going to mostly follow that build guide on Actual. Is what I'm thinking. Looks good to me. And that's where they discuss, Devouring Orb, Abyssal Echoes, how to make that work with Warpath and all that. But really, this is mostly just a focus on how do you level with Warpath. And I've touched on that mostly. But, to go over things, main key points, you can just start doing Warpath right off the bat. Just rush the mana reduction points so that you can use it for free. And you can go up here when you get Void Knight and start doing void damage, and you'll start echoing and doing pretty good damage from doing that. For weapons, two-handed weapons, you want to try to get the life gain on hit suffix or health on melee hit suffix, and then you want to get some maybe ignite chance early on. Not super necessary, but it's definitely worth getting. And then damage prefixes, doesn't matter what. Eventually it's going to matter, right? So once you start speccing to the void passives, you're going to want to get flat void damage and percent increased void damage and melee void damage, like things like that, right? You're gonna want to get these prefixes. That's what you're gonna be looking for in a weapon. There's also some really good uniques. Go over that real quick. Dreamthorn. So Dreamthorn's really nice. It might be worth using your Rune of Ascendancies on Dreamthorn, or on two-handed swords that you can even just buy from the vendor. You can put a Rune of Ascendancy on it if you got a bunch, because it's pretty common. And this is plus 40 melee damage. Super nice. Other than that, Last Laugh is pretty good too. It gives you a ton of physical melee. This is a very common one to get to. I used Rune of Ascendance, I think 3 or 4 times on my weapons, and I got this twice. It's a little bit late. You get level like 47, so it takes a little bit to be able to use it, but pretty dang good. Instantly kill enemies, plus the big flat damage, plus the big attack speed, plus strength, plus melee crit chance. You have less than 100 dodge rating, which we don't stack dodge, so you probably have that. A really good weapon. And there's just some basic leveling stuff too. You can get things like in the ring slot. Actually, let me just show you what I found personally. Character. So there's this thing, which is pretty good. The Carnicization of Momentum. I don't know, it's a crazy name. But really low level unique. And you get 6 of all attributes, kind of nice. But the main thing is you have Swiftness. Swiftness gives you flat 10% MS plus 0.1% per character level. Pretty nice boost. Obviously silver rings are really good too. You get pretty much half that right off just from having a ring. So, you might want to just do a silver ring for the stats instead of using this because you don't get any, resistances from it. So that's kind of rough, but pretty nice ring for just moving fast, especially in the campaign. Viper Tail, not bad either. Not amazing, but the chance to poison is kind of nice because that, I believe, converts to void. Rot chance, and then also gives you melee attack speed, which is nice. Everything else is pretty useless, though. I mean, slow one hit's kind of nice too, but it's also just something you'll probably find. It's super common. This is really good. I really recommend this thing, the Fighting Chance, because I mean, look at it, 72% increased melee damage, and it's pretty simple range of 65 to 85. It's just tons of damage. You know, from looking at this, 3,500 damage compared to 3,000. It's like a ton of damage for a glove slot, and it gives you movement speed, so it's just super nice there too. It does make you take more damage, but I mean, again, this game's pretty easy. If you're not playing hardcore, if you die once or twice, it's not the end of the world, right? So I would definitely recommend using these if you find it. Beyond that, just looking at my gear, let's just take a look. I mean, this I found in Echoes, obviously. Pretty nice from a lizard, which they're nerfing. There's less lizards now, but hopefully you get something like this, right? You want melee void damage, increased damage while chanting is a really good stat. This as well, the Anomaly being chosen here is really good. You get increased void damage, and Anomaly is a good skill. Everything else is kind of, obviously movement speed on boots is something you'd always want to prioritize. Beyond that, you just get some resistances. Cooldown recovery doesn't really matter that much. It's not bad, obviously. You get to cast like Anomaly more often and things like that, but you definitely don't. It's not going to make or break your build at all. As I mentioned with this, you just want the life gain on hit. Relic, stats, elemental resistance stats, prefixes, you can get things like crit chance, maybe crit multi, but again, critting's pretty rare. Void damage is obviously really good. You want to get as much void damage as possible, so you want to try to prioritize that. Strength is also a really good stat. Getting +5 strength or any kind of strength is something you want to focus on. And same thing like with your chest piece, you can get Warpath +1 to Warpath or plus whatever to Warpath. Definitely want to pick that up if you find it and use that. Plus everything else is just going to be strength and resistances. And don't forget, and this is just the Last Epoch rule in general, but do not forget to pick up decent gear, like this, right? +1 to Abyssal Echoes. Kind of nice. You might want to shadow this, or even just keep it around and use it eventually. I don't know. But, you want to just collect the shards that are useful to you, and you want to upgrade your stuff when you have forging potential on them. Because it's just free power. Even just with this one, 3 forging potential. So I could just easily upgrade my movement speed. I should have done that already. Make sure to add Glyph of Hope to that. Give it an upgrade. Unfortunately, I lost all my potential, but now I have tier 5 movement speed. That's super nice. And same thing goes for literally every piece of gear you have. You have 1 forging potential. You never know. You could get super lucky and not even consume any forging potential by upgrading something and make it super strong, right? So you don't want to leave anything with forging potential as long as you have stuff that you can do to craft it. You don't want to necessarily just willy-nilly put stuff on here, though, right? So if I didn't have any levels of Volatile Reversal, which I do, let's say I didn't, you don't want to upgrade your health regen just because you can. Health's not a bad idea, but you don't only want to do stuff that's actually useful to do. Right? And also keep in mind, as you can see here, requires level 57 to forge. You'll run into that blocker a lot, and then you'll forget. That's what I always do, that this can still be upgraded. I just have to be a higher level. So every once in a while, press F and check your stuff and see if you can upgrade it. That can really make your life easier with any build. That goes for any build, but that's the idea. Oh yeah, and charms I didn't really mention, but you don't have to worry about it too much. But obviously this is super good. The increased void damage for 4 seconds when a skill echoes. Tons of damage. You can get up to 76%, which is huge. So you really want to add as many of these as you can. And it is a pain to not have all your relic slots unlocked. Otherwise, I could use this one too. But that's just the cost of going straight to this endgame while at Act 5. So that's opportunity cost. But I'll tell you, you gain levels like crazy. It took me like an hour of doing the echoes to go from level 30 to like level 50. So it's worth it. And then you can just do. I'm not going to do a full guide. I mean, I can do a full guide on this, but there's tons of other guides out there that tell you how to do this stuff. But then you can just go to Temporal Sanctum once you get a key, and then unlock that, beat Jolra, and get to Act 9, and get your passives, get your slots and all that stuff. And it's just a nice, fast way. If you've already done the campaign before, you just don't like doing campaign stuff, just want to get right into the end game and start getting some good gear. Look at this gear. I mean, this is some pretty nice gear that I got just by going straight into the end game. And I would never have found this stuff by doing campaign. Zero chance, right? So I think it's pretty well worth doing this personally. Either at level Act 5 or Act 7, up to you. But if you guys want me to do a guide on that, I can do that. But like I said, there's quite a few out there that have covered that. But I could try and make one. It's pretty easy. Make one if you want. But that's kind of everything I can think of that could be useful for leveling up Warpath, Sentinel, Void Knight in patch 1.2. If you guys like the video, let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. And I might be streaming on Thursday. So I'll put a link to my channel as well on Twitch. Otherwise, yeah, stay safe and enjoy the new patch. I sure know I will.